There's a version of your life that already exists, not in a woo-woo way, but in a very real, grounded way. The business you want to build, the income you want to earn, the way you want to feel in your relationships, your health, your day-to-day life, it's all available to you. But here's what I've found is that it's not that people don't know what they want, and it's not that they don't know how to get there. It's that there are these decisions sitting in the background of their life, quietly waiting to be made. And instead of making them, they're delaying them, avoiding them, overthinking them, taking themselves in and out of them. And those decisions, they're not neutral. They are costing you time, they're costing you growth, and they are costing you the life you keep saying you want. So today we are going to talk about that. Welcome to your Dream Coach podcast. I'm your host, Shayla Wey. I'm a small business coach, leadership strategist, and someone who truly believes that building a business should help you build a life you love, not take over the one you already have. So let's jump into today's episode. And I want to talk about this not from a place of pressure, but from a place of ownership. Because this is what I found as a coach, is that the people who build incredible lives and businesses aren't necessarily smarter. They just decide faster. Because avoidance feels safe, but it's expensive. And what I've seen is that avoidance feels productive because it disguises itself as, well, I'm just thinking it through. I need more clarity. I want to be fully ready before I commit. But the truth is that that's not clarity. That's protection. And you're protecting yourself from making the wrong choice, being judged, failing publicly, stepping into something bigger than you've experienced before. And I get it, because avoiding a decision gives you temporary relief. You don't have to feel the pressure. You don't have to face that uncertainty. You don't have to risk anything. But what people don't realize is avoidance isn't free. It has a cost. And that cost compounds over time. And it looks like staying in the same income bracket for another year, staying in a business that feels heavy instead of expansive, staying in patterns that don't align with who you're becoming. And here's the shift I want you to make. Indecision is a decision. And when you don't choose, you're choosing to stay where you are. And if where you are isn't aligned with your dream life, that should matter. So there's this identity gap, and this is where it gets deeper, because the decisions that you're avoiding are almost always tied to the identity you haven't fully stepped into yet. You're not confused. You're just not fully decided on who you are becoming. You say things like, I want to lead a team, or I want to scale my business, I want more freedom, but your actions, they're still aligned with your current identity, not your next level one. And leadership, real leadership starts here. It starts with how you lead yourself through decisions. And so you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your identity and your systems. And so if your identity is, I'm someone who overthinks, I'm someone who needs certainty, I'm someone who plays it safe, then your decisions will reflect that. But if your identity becomes, I'm someone who trusts myself, I'm someone who makes aligned decisions, and I'm someone who moves even when it's uncomfortable, everything shifts. And this is the gap, not between where you are and your goals, but between who you are and who you're becoming. Now, the 5 decisions that are probably holding you back are the following. 1 is the decision to go all in. This is one of the biggest ones that I see. People are interested in their dreams, but sometimes they're not committed. They're testing it, they're trying it, they're seeing if it works, but they still have one foot out the door. And you can't build something powerful with divided energy. When you're half in, half out, your effort is inconsistent, your messaging is unclear, your confidence is shaky, and your results reflect that. Going all in doesn't mean you never have doubt. It means you've removed the option of quitting every time it gets hard. It means you've decided this is happening, I'll figure it out. That level of commitment creates focus, resilience, momentum, and most importantly, it creates leadership. The second thing is the decision to be seen. This one is massive, and it shows up in subtle ways. Maybe you're posting, but not consistently, or you're sharing, but not fully. You're showing up, but not as your full self. And visibility is uncomfortable because it exposes you, your thoughts, your voice, your perspective. And with that comes fear. What will people think? What if no one engages? What if I say the wrong thing? But here's the reality. You cannot build a business in hiding. And a lot of people are stuck, not because they lack skill, but because they're avoiding visibility. And this is where we really need to take that big leap. Upper limits don't look like failure. They look like hesitation right before expansion. And hiding, well, that's hesitation. Now, the third one is the decision to raise your standards. Your life will always match your standards, not your goals, your standards. What you tolerate becomes your baseline. So if you tolerate inconsistency, low effort, unclear boundaries, underperforming environments, that becomes your normal. And your business reflects that. Raising your standards isn't about being intense or rigid. It's about being clear. Clear on how you show up, what you expect, what you no longer accept. And when you raise your standards, you don't have to chase better results. They naturally will follow. Now, the fourth one is the decision to invest in yourself. And this one comes with a lot of emotion. People don't struggle with money decisions. They struggle with trust. Trusting themselves to follow through, trusting themselves to make it work, trusting themselves to create an ROI. So they wait, and they wait until it feels safer, until it feels easier, until they feel more ready. But growth rarely shows up in comfort. Now, this isn't about making reckless decisions. It's about recognizing when fear is the only thing holding you back. Because there is a difference between I can't do this and I'm scared to do this. And most people confuse the two. Now, the fifth one is the decision to let go. This is the quiet one, the one that people don't always talk about, but it's often the most important, because this is what I've seen in my role as a coach, is that you can't step into your next level while holding on to everything from your current one. Sometimes growth requires subtraction, letting go of relationships that no longer align, habits that no longer serve you, identities that no longer fit. And that's hard, because even when something isn't right anymore, it's familiar. But familiar doesn't mean aligned. And letting go creates space for something bigger. Now, fulfillment is going to come from these aligned decisions. And as I talk a lot about on this podcast, is fulfillment isn't always about achieving more. It's about living in alignment. And when your decisions match your values, your energy shifts and you feel lighter, clearer, more confident. But when you're avoiding decisions, you feel stuck, heavy, disconnected. Because deep down, you know what you need to do. You're not just doing it yet. And that gap, that's what creates dissatisfaction. Now, growth requires speed, not perfection. High performers don't always make perfect decisions. They make faster ones. And they trust themselves to adjust. And this is what I've seen is where momentum creates clarity, not the other way around. And we've been conditioned to believe once I'm clear, I'll act. But in reality, once you act, you become clear. And this is where I think of thinking fast and slow. We overuse slow thinking in moments where action would serve us more, and we call it strategy. But it's often just hesitation. Now, the 3D decision framework, if you're feeling this right now, here's something simple you can use. And we refer to this as the 3D framework. Number 1 is defined, number 2 is decide, and number 3 is do. So define, what decision are you avoiding right now? Be honest. Decide, what would your next level self do? And then take action and do it within the next 24 hours. Not next week, not when it's perfect, now. Because action builds trust. So leading through your decisions first, feeling aligned when you stop avoiding, and you feel fulfillment. And when we grow, you expand as you act. And this is the work. And this is how you build a life that actually feels as good as it looks. So if this episode hit you, if you're realizing there are decisions that you've been avoiding, let's take action today. You can join LFG Business Academy on Skool. It's completely free. And you can get around the type of community where the leaders are taking advantage of the tools and moving forward and taking action and not just thinking. Because knowing isn't the problem, execution is. So the life that you want isn't waiting on more time. It's waiting on your decisions. So ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? And what would happen if I finally decided? Because your dream life starts with the way that you lead, the way that you live, and the way that you grow. I'll see you next time on your Dream Coach podcast.